Hi, my name is Damien Marie AtHope, and I am an axiological atheist, which is a value theory or a value science atheist. And I am against hereditary religion. So, let me tell you about hereditary religion. Hereditary religion means to me a general expression of what I see as like a parent telling a child what their religion is, the child not figuring it out what they believe on their own. And this religion could be A, B, C, whatever. Really, it's about the forcing. It's about the indoctrination. Such as like a 3-year-old saying what their religion is. Yeah. A 3-year-old doesn't have a religion. A 3-year-old was told and they simply are spouting what they were told to agree to. It's about agreement, not belief. So this unchosen belief by the child, on the child, until they too say that they believe what they're told. It's that kind of force. It's that coercion and indoctrination. And you know, like almost all religions and all religious parents to some extent do all over the world, all the while claiming their religion or God beliefs are a chosen belief, when it's really just an agreement to the ones in power. They accept what they're told as their own, with little thinking in general, but mostly and most definitely if it is said that the religion is something that they get at a young age. To me, that it's the age that really is an issue. The age of before reason cannot be said to have a religion, a God, understand even these concepts. And speaking of understanding the concepts, there's also a problem because in general, magical thinking minds are common in children, under 7, who tend to appeal to animistic thinking in their hypotheses, their conclusions. They see animation, spirits or whatever, or just some magical powers in a lot of things. So that them to figure out what's true or real, they're still like trying to understand the world. So to me, they're generally, when they're unsure, they come up with, or the potential to come up with magical, conclusions. So to test if a God could be real or not, or to understand if religion saying things could be genuine, they don't know. And if they come up with ideas, they're just being creative or doing what they're told. So to me, I oppose the force of hereditary religion. So in this part, to me, it's how best to help change the current, values for religious freedom rights over child rights. I think it really hinges on the fact of understanding where freedom of religion lies in the individual, and not in the sense a parent over an entire family, to me. So I'm going to read a little article piece. Children usually acquire their religious views from their parents, although they may also be influenced by others they communicate with, their peers and teachers. So really, it's not just an issue of what parents are doing. It's also an issue of anyone who has an influence. And it's, to me, even like, let's say, I have a general rule that anyone under 18, I won't really debate them. I will talk to them, but I won't. And it's just because I don't feel like they're really, at a place of understanding. I wouldn't push beliefs on anybody, but especially children or youths. although I think youths have a better chance than a child does. So aspects, of this subject of, what the rights of the child in relation to religion, includes things like, their rites of passage. So to me, what's interesting is religion has rites of passage. So they acknowledge, or they tend to acknowledge, that there's some state where a child stops being a child. And to me, I think that that's when, at least to their own standard, a child should be, not, given religion, where they're supposed to choose, until a time that you actually think a child, is responsible enough to make choices. And to me, this is interesting about the rites of passage, because to me, they acknowledge that there is some state of a time, an age of a child where they can make better decisions. That's when at least you should be having, the child presented with religion. Not some time before they're 7, especially. And this also, issues of education, a child has a right, in a sense, to an education. And I see that that's one of the issues. And also the child's psychology, some children are not emotionally, ready to make choices. And I really think that it can be against their psychology too. Some of the stories and fear of religion in general. What's interesting to me too is like how the parents, they desperately want supposedly religious freedom, and yet they desperately do not want to give a child in general, like, especially fanatic parents, the same religious freedom that they demand for themselves. And so, some Christian churches practice, infant baptism, to enter children into the faith, before they can even hardly, understand words, and rituals of circumcision, violence against a child, whether it's female or male, to mark, that they're part of the religion, for Jews, for, and some Muslim cultures, and some Christians, especially Coptic Christians and Ethiopian Orthodox Christians, whose infant males that are belonging to the faith are put through this. And so to me, this is about a faith issue and once again, to me, a child really owns themselves. Everybody owns themselves. The parent has a responsibility for the child in a sense. They don't own the child. They are responsibility for their welfare. So, also, going on, Jewish boys and girls then confirm their belonging at a coming-of-age ceremony. So, there's other cultures and religions that have coming-of-age ceremonies. And to me, like I said, I would just put on them that's when a coming of age, at least when, a child is ready to then be more of an adult. And that's a time to be introducing ideas for them to think about. Anyways, some religious adherents have a form of confirmation rituals that occur when the child has reached the age of reason. Or some just religious families do this regardless of what a religion. You could have Muslims do this and other Muslims not. You could have Jewish do that and other Jews don't. Christians do it and other Christians not. So I don't think that, but I think that it is reasonable and it is ethical to wait until they can make a choice and allow them to make the choice freely. And when a child has reached the age of reason and can voluntarily accept the ideas and decide for themselves. And while these later confirmation rituals, of course, occur when the child has reached the age of reason and voluntarily, supposedly accepts their religion, It also may not be all that it seems, because within the hidden dynamics of coercive religious indoctrination, there is this ever-present thing that's attacking their reason. That the fact of anchoring bias, the fact all the biases that can come up. So to me, like the authority bias, the tendency to attribute greater accuracy to the opinions of an authority figure, unrelated to the accuracy of its content, and be more influenced by that opinion than the opinions of others, regardless of its proof of truth or not. So then there's also the illusion of truth effect. That people are more likely to identify true statements to those that they have previously heard. Yeah, religion likes this. You get them really, really young before they can, and they just say it over and over again. God is real. God is real. It's the illusion of truth. The status quo bias is definitely an issue. It's a tendency to like things and to stay relatively the same. So to me, this definitely is something that religion tries to promote. They try to promote, you need to believe this thing that I already believe, not because it's true, but because our family has always believed it. Tradition. It's a status quo bias, and it's the thing inside of ourselves that desires to not really shake the boat, to fit in. We are social animals. Then the other one is anchoring bias, a tendency to rely too heavy on the first piece of information offered, the anchor. When making decisions, anchoring also occurs when individuals use an initial piece of information to make subsequent judgments. In other words, there has to be a God, right? They learn this at a very young age before they ever thought. They're just told and they just go, okay. This is what you believe, okay. And then they just have this mindset, you know, and I did too, an indoctrinated child. And you have this mindset of that there has to be a God. There has to be something. And so it's very hard from that anchor to see, you know, atheism, to see reason, or to see, you know, facts, because you don't want, you're not wanting to go against that initial thing that is so core. And then, of course, there's the confirmation bias, a tendency to search for, interpret, focus, and remember information in a way that confirms the one's perception. And religious love to do this. They only look for things that prove to themselves that there must be a God, and everything that it confirms that, they accept. Anything that might go against that is automatically not trustable. Science goes against God, not trustable. So it's not that they don't trust science, it's that the bias to believe God is greater, or the bias to believe the Bible. That the Bible has to be true. Whether there's contradictions, whether you can prove to archaeology that things didn't happen the way it said it happened, it doesn't matter. The fact that there's never been proof of magic doesn't matter. And nothing matters. Because if someone wants to believe, they simply believe. And then they go out and look for things that prove just that. And then to me, the last thing that really happens in the hereditary religion really is the post-purchase rationalization. I think this is a core tenet. The fact is a tendency to persuade oneself through rational argument that a purchase that you did was good and had of good value and it made sense and was accurate. So if you have this belief that you were given and you haven't really thought about it for years, which happened to me. I was a Christian until I was 36. Never really thought about it, ever. I always just assumed everybody believed God. I didn't really think about it. I thought even Satanists, in a sense, believe God. They just think, you know, that Satan was better to follow. But you know, you just want to rationalize it because you've already lived your whole life, you know, and there's so much loss. You can lose family. So there's all these feelings that you have, and you just want to make every excuse that purchase, that agreement that you made, that acceptance of, yes, okay, there's a God, the religion I follow with my family is true, or whatever. And it's not because it's accurate. It's not because it's true. It's not because of the overwhelming evidence to support it. It simply is because you don't want it to be wrong. So with that, people really are fighting a battle because they don't want to. And so this comes up to something else. So while something like allowing a child to reach a certain age could seem real voluntary, and the person could say, oh, well, I definitely let my child think for themselves. I'm spiritual, not religious, but they're very religious. There's a lot of people that are very religious like to say they're spiritual, not religious, because it sounds better. But anyways, so but they're still doing the indoctrination, but they're doing it in a more passive aggressive way, like the act of shunning. So while hereditary religion, to me, as a general rule, is about not forcing, if there's heavy coercion involved, such as like shunning, that persistently avoiding someone, especially a family member, ignoring them, rejecting them, for the reason that they're not adhering to the religion the way that the parent wants, to me is a form of, psychological and emotional abuse. And, this is to me a common threat almost in a lot of hereditary religion, that if you change, if you think for yourself, you're out. You're not just out like as in no longer following that faith, but you're out in the fact that you no longer are connected to your family. And so to me, it goes back to shunning. So shunning can be the act of social rejection or emotional distance. So it doesn't have to be the outright social rejection. It could just be emotional distance. Oh, you don't believe in God, okay. And then very passive aggressive, not loving. Yeah, emotional distance. In a religious context, shunning is a form of decision by the demonstration of the cooperation to cease interaction with individuals or a group. And this can, like I said, this can be a physical or an emotional thing. And follows generally, when it's religious though, a particular set of rules, because often religions have very strict guidelines of how they do it, especially the more insular ones and stuff, more cultish, or things like the Amish or Mennonites. But other religions do it too. Jehovah's Witnesses do it. I mean, there's other religions that do it. Even Scientology does this kind of shunning stuff. But I really think it's just an aspect of religion in general. It's just a fact of tribalism. So social rejection occurs when a person or a group deliberately avoids association with another person, habitually keeps away from the individual or group. This can be a form of sanction against an association, in a sense, or that a person belongs to and the person. It can often involve religious groups that are overly tightly knit organizations and communities, where if they remove oneself is basically isolated. And because of having no more interaction with what used to be close members. So targets of shunning can include persons who have been labeled apostates, unbelievers, or some sort of whistleblower of the religion, ones that are, somehow a threat because they cause conflict. Social rejection of this type because you're not following the rules, because religion has a certain set. So sometimes even if you're going, you're disruptive or you're not doing it the way they want. Or sometimes, like, let's say shunning. Some people that are shunned, and then the people that are supposed to actively be members of the church and involved in the shunning, let's say that they don't shun the person. They love them, let them come in. Sometimes they themselves will get punitive damages, socially from the church or religious faith or whatever. So here's a portion from a friend of mine, Marquise Amon. I'm probably not saying his name right. Sorry. A child cannot understand a religion until the age of 7, when the mind is developed enough to distinguish reality from fantasy. So before then, a child could not distinguish between any religion set before them. So they cannot be part of any religion truly by choice until they can understand. Then there is the intellectual requirement of religion. It would take delving into religious history, linguistics, and archaeology, as well as other sciences, to make a truly informed choice of the religion's accuracy to the reality of the world. The legal rights of children are often neglected. There are arguments where private institutions can limit rights, and this generally is religious institutions. Some can remove the rights of a child because of some kind of protection. Through the use of rules, they then can subjugate a child into indoctrinating them in school systems that are religious. And the First Amendment is often limited really by this. And I feel, and even he feels, it could be a violation. However, even if we take into account the consideration that no child could be forced to choose religion, the part of the First Amendment that reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting or prohibiting the establishment of religion," means, literally and philosophically, there is no justification requirement for having or lacking any religion. That one cannot enforce religion onto another human being because it is legally not binding. So hereditary religion, in a sense, then is a violation of the U.S. law. The tax-exempt status is not exclusive to churches. There are no legal establishment of what religion is in the United States, nor can there be a legal affirmation for that reason. So religious rightly is to any U.S. citizen free in this country, and thus that every citizen includes children are citizens. They have rights, and those rights should be protected. So many legal experts have argued that the government should create laws to increase the welfare of children, irrespective of religion of the parents that they choose. Whatever religion they choose should not be automatically seen as the same as the child's choice. Nicholas Humphrey has argued that children have a human right not to have their minds crippled by exposure to other people's bad ideas like religion, and should have the ability to question the religious views even of their parents. Parents' religions and child's welfare, debunking the doctrine of parents' rights over the child, says philosopher Arthur, I don't know the last thing, sorry, S-C-H, anyways. I'll put it in the info, spoke to the subject of the 19th century, and as the capacity of believing is strongest in childhood, special care is taken to make sure of this tender age. So right there, that is agreeing with me that really when a child is young, you really shouldn't be trying to get the capacity, because they don't have a good capacity to believe things accurately. This has much more to do with the doctrine of belief taking root than threats and reports of miracles actually being true or being proven. If in early childhood certain fundamental views and doctrines are pandered, the greatest, effect is that they're able to, indoctrinate past, reason and instill a bunch of biases. And to me, several authors have also said about things critical of religious indoctrination of children. And these don't just include Nicholas Humphrey, but also Daniel Dennett, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and others. They use the term, child abuse when they describe the harm that some religious upbringing can inflict on children. And yes, I do think that there's definitely some religious upbringings that are inflicting religious child abuse on children. A.C. Grayling has argued that we are all born atheists, and it takes a certain amount of work on the part of adults in our community to persuade children differently. Dawkins states that he is angered by the label Muslim child or Catholic child. He asks, how can a young child be considered to be intellectually mature enough to have such an independent view of the cosmos of humanity's place within it? By contrast, Dawkins points out, no reasonable person would speak of a Marxist child or a Tory child. I could, of course, say in America, things like a Republican child, a Democrat child, or an anarchist child. Anyways, he suggests that there is little controversy over such labels because of the weird privilege status that religion holds. On several occasions, Dawkins has made the claim that sexually abusing a child is arguably less damaging than long-term physical damage by inflicting a child having a Catholic upbringing, in the first place. Now, I don't agree with that. I think that sexual abuse is very traumatic. But I do think that there is some very traumatic psychological things that can happen from fundamentalists, especially pushing their views on a child. Okay, and as a means to transmit opinions directly to children, Dawkins wrote a book called The Magic of Reality, in which some natural phenomenon that's usually left unexplained to them by means of gods or other myths, creations, or creatures that, mystify them. Anyways, the point is that religion, basically has taken over, the rights of a child. And I do believe that it is a violation of human rights. And so for that reason, I ask you and everyone, please oppose the force of hereditary religion.